How many of you have ever been in a fender bender? I have. Very annoying. They tend to happen when you're actually in a rush, you're late for a meeting or some appointment, and then out of nowhere, this guy rear ends you and you have to sit there and start negotiating with this stranger, usually about a scratch that only one of you can see. The same thing happens in marriage. Say, for example, guys, I'm pretty sure you know this very well, when your woman takes forever to get ready, and it doesn't matter how many hours beforehand she starts to prepare. Or ladies, when you finally get to the event with this guy, and apparently there's a walking race he didn't tell you about, and you have to catch up with him in your heels. November 10th, 2018, the time, 9:24 a.m. The reason why I remember this day is not because I have such a good memory, but it's because I had a fender bender with my husband. And it was one of those difference in opinion type fender benders, which are normal. I mean, there's nothing hard about that, right? But my reaction to this fender bender is something that I had not experienced in my life. I was hysterical. I was crying profusely. Not like those soaps you see where the chick just blinks and a tear rolls down her cheek and just looks sad. No, this was ugly. It was full-blown weeping, wailing, snot coming out of my mouth, hot mess kind of a reaction. So I took my phone, I rushed into the bathroom, locked the door behind me, and just stood there as I cried. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my head. My top soaking wet, my hands were trembling, and so I sat down on the gray bathroom mat. And as I was holding my phone, I just looked at it and I realized that the whole screen was full of water, my tears. So I dropped it on the floor. On my right is a bathroom window. The shower curtain was drawn, and so the sun rays peered through the window. And the sun shone on the darkest moment of my life. I was in so much distress, so much anxiety, so much pain, that the only thing I could think about doing to release this stress was to cut myself. And so I took a quick glance at my bathroom. The organizer is somewhere on the left. And I looked at it, and I'm like, toothpaste, toothbrush, shower cap. Nothing I could use at that moment in time. So here I am, I'm still weeping, still crying, my heart is still pounding. I'm still a mess. I've lost control. Let me tell you something about Wendy. She doesn't lose control. I'm an active participant in my life. Very active participant. I think about things before I do anything. I think about it. I weigh pros, cons. Are there any consequences? Yes, no. Can I handle the consequences? Yes, no. Make my decision, run with it. So this person here on this bathroom floor, that was new to me. When I was growing up, like any child, I had big dreams and ambitions. My two biggest aspirations, one was to smoke. Because my dad smoked, and I thought it was the coolest thing to do. And so when I was 18, I did exactly that. I smoked. Embassy Kings, just like my dad. I would later realize that it wasn't so cool after all, so I quit. The other thing that I really wanted to do growing up was to run away from home. Yeah, told you I had big, ambitious goals. And I had a genius plan of how I was going to do this. Genius. I was going to finish primary school, then finish secondary school, then get enrolled into a university and finish that. Hopefully get a job that paid me well enough for me to be able to move out of my mom's house. I just didn't have the guts to run away from home and become a street child, so I stuck it through. When I was in Form 2, I came home for the August holidays to find that my dad had been hospitalized. Later on, I would find out that he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. And now all his delusions growing up, they all made sense. You see, growing up, our household was always in some sort of chaos or another. Because of my dad's illness, he had a skewed sense of reality. And so a normal conversation between me and my siblings, or my siblings and my mother, would always turn into something ugly. And so as young children, we kind of learned how to go around it. And we devised ways of sort of avoiding my dad when he was around because we couldn't be ourselves around him. The relationship between him and my mother was a hostile one, because she battled the same kind of things that we were going through as children. She had to prove herself against what my dad thought was reality. It was a bit sad because I always felt like she came with a knife to a gunfight. My dad always won. And so I guess this is where I started taking charge, being in control. So when I was 23 years old, I finally got that job that paid me well enough for me to move out of the house, or in my case, to run away. Unfortunately for me, that year also coincided with the year that my mother decided that she wasn't capable to continue with that kind of a life. Taking care of someone with a mental illness is tough, and so I understood where she was coming from. And so just like that, I went from being a child to being a parent. You see, my dad hadn't worked since I was 14, more or less. And now with the separation, someone had to take care of him. So I did. I stepped up. I sorted out the bills. I did everything that I could to make sure that he was comfortable. I would go visit him, do the shopping, groceries, all that, go see him, spend our afternoon most times in silence, leave him pocket money when I was leaving, and then go back home. So I funded my dad and his lifestyle and every crazy project that he came up with. And I say crazy because you remember he had schizophrenia, right? So there's actually a time that I funded a project where he believed he had found the cure for HIV/AIDS. I just couldn't say no to him. I couldn't let him down. And so going back to that bathroom floor, a couple of things occurred to me. One, I was really sick, and I needed to take my medication and my journey to recovery very seriously. A couple of months before that, I had been diagnosed with depression. And so it wasn't really about the fender bender with my husband. It could have been anyone, a colleague, a friend. I was just sick. So that's one. The other thing was that I cannot control everything. Cannot control everything. I have spent my life mastering everything around me, and I have succeeded. I know what it feels like to win. I have won in my career. I have won with my family. I have won with my friends. I've won in my marriage. I've won as a mother. But as I sat on that bathroom floor without any control, I realized I hadn't mastered one thing. I hadn't mastered myself. I hadn't mastered what was within me. Something I discovered through my road to recovery was that being vulnerable and asking for help, it doesn't take away from my strength. And so when I shared my journey with a few people in my life, their response was overwhelming. My husband has been supportive all through my journey. He's gone to therapy sessions with me. He's always encouraging me. In fact, that day, when I was on that bathroom floor, it's his words that made me pick a different path. I met a friend of mine at a very public engagement. And when I told her my story, she said, "I'll pray for you." Then I think she remembered, usually when we tell people we'll pray for them, we go home and then we forget. So we stood right there, and then she held my hand and she prayed for me. And she probably doesn't know this, but I needed that prayer. And she said something that is probably why the universe has made all this happen today. She said, "I hope you can find the strength to tell this story to others so that others can learn from you." My friends came to pick my son, who's 2 years old, when I needed to rest over the weekends, just to recover. A friend of mine who lives in Zambia booked my calendar for every Friday afternoon. She would call me. And I remember she said, "It doesn't matter, even if I have nothing to say, I can sit there in silence until the call is over." And so as you sit here, I don't know what you're struggling with. But one thing's for sure, we are all human beings, and we are all having a human experience. So nothing, absolutely nothing, is alien to us. You're not going to be the first person to go through what you've gone through. Others have done it, and they've won, and so can you. And so I hope that you can learn from my story. And if you're the type who feels the need to be in control of everything, let it go. Doesn't always work that way. And when you feel the burden of the world on your shoulders, let those around you, give them an opportunity to love you and to help you carry that burden. I don't care how old you are. The fact is, it still takes a village. Thank you.